Welcome, and thank you for joining Raising the Bar with today's program focused on childhood cancer. I'm Rachel Petroselli, President of Children's Hospital of Pittsburgh Foundation, and we have a few friendly reminders first to cover before we start our program. First, I ask that you submit your questions at any point where we're allowing time at the end of the program to answer them. Please use that chat function on your screen. We're also recording today's session, and in the days that follow, an email will be sent to you with a link, which we hope you'll share with others you think might find this of interest or inspirational. I'm super excited to welcome our guests here in the studio with me, leaders in the field of pediatric cancer and leaders at UPMC Children's Hospital. Dr. Linda McAllister-Lucas, our Chief of Hematology Oncology and the Wheeler Chair at Children's, and Dr. Jean Tersak, our Director of Clinical Oncology Research and our Director of our Survivorship program. Two phenomenal people, heroes in my mind, and I'm sure in the minds of others. Before I turn the program over to Dr. McAllister-Lucas, because we have a lot to cover today, I have a brief video to share with you as an introduction to UPMC Children's Hospital of Pittsburgh's cancer program.
Thank you, Rachel, for inviting us. We're excited to tell you about all of the great things happening in our pediatric cancer program here at UPMC Children's Hospital. Thanks to all of you for joining us today. We're super grateful for your time. As you can see from the video, we have so much to be excited about in pediatric cancer. We love to see our patients ring that bell. We have seen cure rates for pediatric cancer dramatically improve over the last decades. We now stand at 85% of children diagnosed with cancer are cured. This is a tremendous accomplishment, and we are thrilled. And yet, it is simply not enough. It's not good enough. 85% means that out of 100 patients diagnosed with cancer, 15 still die. That means that cancer is the third leading cause of death for children in our country. Pediatric cancer is considered rare, but even though we call it rare, 16,000 children in our country are diagnosed with cancer every year, and they're diagnosed with all sorts of different cancers illustrated on the slide you see. Acute lymphoblastic leukemia is the most common form of cancer we see, shown in blue. We see patients with brain tumors, bone tumors, shown in green, and all sorts of cancer. We take care of all these cancers here at UPMC Children's Hospital. And we're constantly searching for better treatments. And we, in addition to trying to improve treatments, we need to make the treatments less toxic. These patients receive chemotherapy, they're treated with radiation, they undergo very complex surgeries, and as a result, they suffer toxic side effects that we need to improve. So our program is constantly looking to the future to improve both of these things. We are very proud to be part of Children's Hospital. Our program is also part of the UPMC Hillman Cancer Center. And we rank in the top 20 in programs in U.S. News & World Report across the country. We're very proud of this. We're a huge multidisciplinary team. What does that mean? So in addition to folks like Dr. Turzak, Jean Turzak, and myself, who are pediatric oncologists, we work with a large team of others, including surgeons who perform very complex surgeries, radiation oncologists who deliver radiation to our patients, radiologists who do CT scan and MRIs to help us understand where these tumors are located, pathologists, anesthesiologists, et cetera, et cetera. So many people at Children's Hospital are dedicated to caring for our patients with cancer. We take care of all of the children in Pittsburgh who are diagnosed with cancer, and in addition to our region, we have a large catchment area, as you can see on the slide, that involves states throughout the country. And in addition to caring for the patients that are right in front of us, we're always looking to the future. We're always thinking about how to make new discoveries, gain new knowledge, so that 10 years from now, a child who is diagnosed with cancer can enjoy a better outcome than we can offer today. And in addition to caring for the patients who are actively being treated right at this moment for their cancer, we have an outstanding cancer survivorship program where we care for patients who have completed their therapy. They're cured, and now they're dealing with the consequences of all the treatments that they have had to endure. All of these are really important components of our program. Our pediatric oncology program at Children's Hospital of Pittsburgh has grown tremendously in the last 5 years. We've recruited 18 new faculty. Our clinical director is Dr. Louis Rapkin. He came to us from Emory University, and his particular area of focus is treating patients, adolescent and young adult patients with cancer. These patients have very different needs than patients who are under the age of 10. We have many areas in which we excel, and I just mention a few. We are very grateful to the Mario Lemieux Foundation for the support of the Mario Lemieux Lymphoma Center. We see many patients with lymphoma and the related cancer leukemia. We have a dedicated lymphoma leukemia clinical team that is led by Dr. Erica Freeling, who's shown in the slide there. I myself am a lymphoma researcher. I run a research laboratory that studies lymphoma. Another area where we shine is in caring for patients with brain tumors. We have an outstanding brain tumor team, and that is led by Dr. Alberto Brauneser, who came to us from St. Jude several years ago. In addition to our brain tumor program, we're extremely proud to be one of the 21 institutions in this country that can offer phase 1 trials through the Children's Oncology Group National Consortium. What does this mean? So phase 1 trials are trials in which we are testing new drugs to try to evaluate whether they're safe and eventually whether they work in certain tumors. This is a privilege to run such trials, and this program is run by Dr. Andrew Bukowinski. We partner with an outstanding bone marrow transplant team that is led by Dr. Paul Schabaltz. Our bone marrow transplant team performs about 50 transplants each year, about 25 of which are for the care of our patients with cancer. And in addition to these programs that we offer and our faculty, we're so very proud of our ability to train leaders in the field. We run an outstanding pediatric hematology oncology fellowship program. So fellows are people who have finished medical school, they have finished pediatric residency and are board-certified licensed pediatricians. And now they've made a decision to pursue extra training to become specialists in pediatric hematology oncology. Jean Turzak and I did this many years ago. Our program offers 2 to 3 slots per year, and you train for 3 years. And we're very proud of our trainees. Some of whom are here. Dr. Turzak is actually a graduate, our first graduate of our fellowship program. And in addition, our trainees are all around the country leading the field. So we contribute to pediatric cancer here in Pittsburgh and beyond. I now want to turn the program over to my friend and colleague, Jean Turzak, who's going to tell you about our amazing and outstanding survivorship program.
Thank you, Linda. That was just a really wonderful overview of our clinical and research operations. You know, we just heard some very important numbers. There are 16,000 newly diagnosed childhood cancer cases per year, and 85% of those individuals will go on to a long-term cure. What that translates into is nearly 13,000 individuals who enter the survivorship phase each year. So I'm happy to say there's nearly 500,000 young adult survivors of childhood cancer in the country right now. The problem is that there's a cost for the cure, and that's one of the other things we're working so hard to reduce. When a child transitions or a young adult transitions to the survivorship program, we really shift our focus because the cancer has been cured. Our focus becomes helping them live the healthiest, fullest life possible as a childhood cancer survivor. This has many aspects. One is to follow and try to reduce any early organ dysfunction. So depending on the treatment and the diagnosis, this could be early kidney failure, it could be early heart failure. There's really no organ system that's spared. And you can imagine, since we've treated children and adolescents, that we're now following adolescents and young adults in survivorship, and fertility is a huge and important issue to this population. They're now entering their young adult years, and childbearing is an important focus in many lives. We also screen for second cancers. Unfortunately, some of the treatments we need to use to cure the first cancer can lead to a second cancer, and early detection is vital in the long-term survival. And finally, just in terms of their educational attainment and their employment status, we help each survivor to meet the greatest goals that they can meet in their lifetime. I can't think of a better way to introduce to you more about the survivorship program than through the eyes of Noelle Conover. Noelle is a very special member of our team and is the project coordinator for a program called Survivor Connect. In so many ways, Noelle is the heart and soul of the survivorship program. So through this video, meet Noelle.
Everybody's familiar with 911 and the year 2001. Our family had our own personal 911 when, in October of that year, our son came into my bedroom and he said, "Hey Mom, I have a lump under my arm." He goes, "What do you think it could be?" And I was like, "I don't know, Matt, we'll go to the doctor, we'll figure it out." And unfortunately, our journey began with cancer. He was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And unfortunately, Matt had a very rare type of lymphoma, and it was not easily treatable. And we were inpatient for almost 9 months. And Matt eventually had to have a bone marrow transplant. And at the end of that bone marrow transplant, just about 5 days shy of going home, he developed a fever and ended up in the ICU. And ultimately, he lost his battle with cancer in July of 2002. The hardest day of my life was being given Matt's belongings in a bag and being escorted out of Children's and to go home without my son. It was the darkest day of our lives. When a child passes away, everybody wants to do something. And so we eventually built up some funds, and the first thing that we wanted to do was come back to Children's Hospital. You hear a lot about grateful families who are just grateful that their children are alive and well. We didn't really fit that. We're not a grateful family because our child isn't here. But I still am grateful for the care that he received here. And I always said that the doctors and nurses at Children's took such good care of us. I thought he would tell his story. That wasn't to be. I'm to tell his story. And so every day of my life, I focus on keeping Matt's story alive. After Matt had passed away, I decided it was time to get back to work because I had left my job and I just couldn't do it. So I decided to go online and look for a job. So I put in the skills of marketing, program coordination, PR, computer and technology, and up popped this job. And it said, project coordinator of the Survivorship program, University of Pittsburgh Medical School. And I thought, wow, that's right up my alley. The other requirement that it had was that you be a nurse. Well, I'm not a nurse. But I thought, I really match these requirements, so I'm going to just submit my resume. Well, imagine my surprise when I got a call to interview at Children's Hospital, Division of Hematology Oncology, working for the doctor who took care of my child. It was meant to be. I do PR for the program. I do marketing for the program. I coordinate events for the program. People ask me all the time how I can do the job because I'm working with cancer survivors. And I say, the reason why I can do the job is because they've survived cancer. It is not our reality. It isn't what happened with my son, but it's everything I ever hoped that would have happened. We have a program that we call Survivor Connect. Survivor Connect is a trademarked name, and it's a program that we developed when we were applying for a grant for the program. One of the things about survivorship is insurance companies don't necessarily reimburse for the medical visits that they have or the extra vigilance that we have to have on their health. And so a lot of our program is philanthropy supported. Survivor Connect is a key differentiator of our program versus any other hospital. Our program includes emotional support. It includes event planning so that there are events around what survivors can do, things about wellness and nutrition. When I first started, we had 123 survivors. Here we are 9 years later, we just crossed the 1,000 survivor mark.
Every time I hear Noelle's story, my heart aches for their family's loss. But I am filled with joy and gratitude for how she is drawing on her resilience and strength to make a difference in the lives of so many kids and their families. And thank you, Jean, for your leadership of our survivorship program that makes all of that possible with the help of philanthropy. It's just very touching. I'm glad our audience had a chance to learn a little bit more about the survivorship program. Linda, you gave us a great overview of the program. We have a ton of experts that are working on behalf of kids who are diagnosed with cancer, and we've made a lot of progress. The field has made a lot of progress. You stated 85% survival rates. 15% are still losing their battle. The only way to address that is through research. And so much research is happening at UPMC Children's Hospital. I would love for you to share with us what is happening at Children's.
Thank you, Rachel. I am very excited to tell everyone more about the research program we have at UPMC Children's Hospital in pediatric cancer. Research is embedded in every aspect of our operations. It is so important to everything we do. We've witnessed this change where we've gone from almost no children surviving pediatric cancer to now 85%. And this is because thousands of people across the country have done research for decades. We know the power of research. We've seen it. And so we believe in it and we embrace it. We in Pittsburgh carry out research across the spectrum of research. So what does that mean? We carry out basic science laboratory studies. We look at the DNA in cancer cells. We look at the proteins in cancers. We look at the cells themselves. We try to ask questions on a fundamental level. Why do these cancers happen? What can we do to prevent the growth of these cancers? Can we find new drug to treat the cancers? On the other end of the spectrum, we perform clinical trials where we're actually engaged with the patients themselves, and we're comparing different treatments, trying to determine which treatments work better. And in between that is translational research, where we actually look at patient tumors, both in the lab, and identify the abnormalities in those cancers themselves. So the whole spectrum of research we're engaged in. We are pursuing dozens of research projects here in Pittsburgh. And the challenge is that all of this research is extremely expensive. And in fact, for our research budget, only 10% of our funds come from the National Institute of Health, from federal funds, because the amount of funds available for pediatric cancer research are just limited. They are simply not enough. And so we rely hugely on philanthropy. I always say to people, literally, philanthropy runs our research program, and it means so much to us, and we are so grateful. I want to give you one example of an area where research is making a difference, going back to Noelle Conover's story. Noelle's son, Matt, was diagnosed with anaplastic large cell lymphoma, a relatively rare form of pediatric lymphoma. Research for the last decades has identified that those cancers are caused by a specific break in a specific chromosome. And when that break occurs, the DNA is then abnormal, and it encodes an abnormal protein called an oncoprotein. And this protein is called NPM-ALK, this protein. And we know that this protein is actually the root cause of this cancer when it's present in a cell that gives that cell the opportunity to become a cancer. We now know that there are drugs that can specifically target that NPM-ALK protein. These drugs are called tyrosine kinase inhibitors. And right now, we are carrying out clinical trials to try to understand how to use those drugs so that we can specifically target that protein that is found in anaplastic large cell lymphoma. And our big hope is that this treatment is going to be more effective because it's targeting the root cause of the cancer, and it's going to be less toxic because it's not like general chemotherapy that just kills any rapidly dividing cell. Instead, it's targeted right at that cancer cell. This is the kind of stuff that we are so excited about in pediatric oncology. We want to see more and more of it. I now want to turn the program over to Jean, my friend and colleague, who will tell you more about our clinical research program here in Pittsburgh. Jean.
Thank you, Linda. Research is so critical to everything that we do. The Children's Oncology Group has over 200 institutions within the country, and I'm proud to say that we're one of 21 sites that's given the responsibility and privilege to test new drugs and try to make advancements when children do not respond to the standard therapies. We're also one of 35 sites in the country that's part of something called the Childhood Cancer Survivor Study. This has really been the foundational work to build all of the research that is developed to understand the late effects of childhood cancer. We then can share this work with the other 200 institutions, and I'm happy to say that we have over 100 clinical trials that are active right now. I think one of the best ways to highlight the importance of clinical trials is actually through a patient story. And I'm very happy today to share a story with you about a patient named Austin. I've known Austin for many years, and he is an incredible young man. When he was just 14 years old, he was diagnosed with AML, acute myelogenous leukemia. This is a very aggressive form of leukemia. And he was given the treatment that was known to be the best at the time from all of the research that had been done previously. So he went into remission, went back to his normal life, and unfortunately about a year later started to develop symptoms again and was found to have a recurrence or a relapse of his AML. So I've already told you that he was given the best treatment that we knew how to give at that time. So where do we go next? And that's where the early drug discovery and the clinical trials become increasingly important. So we were able to offer Austin a clinical trial that tested a new drug for patients who relapsed after they were given the initial therapy. And the other wonderful thing about this drug was that it's also specially formulated to try to reduce the risk of heart failure following it. So our goal is to get him into remission again, but also to reduce the late effects that he might experience. We were so incredibly delighted that this experimental medicine did put Austin back into remission. We also know that when someone experiences a relapse, it means that if we can get them into remission again, a bone marrow transplant is a very important part of their treatment. So Austin then went on to a bone marrow transplant under the direction of our very talented bone marrow transplant colleagues. They had a Children's Hospital Pittsburgh protocol that was testing a regimen to cure this type of relapsed leukemia. And again, we are so thankful that Austin responded to this clinical trial, and he's now 3 years following that therapy in remission and just a vital, active, talented young man. We really want to be able to offer any of our children a clinical trial like Austin received. The picture you see now is showing some of our clinical research team. This is a team that works just tirelessly to try to advance the cure through clinical trials, and it takes tremendous resources in order to conduct these trials. To give you some examples, we have individuals that do regulatory work to file all the necessary documents to open the protocols, to make sure that we're meticulously reporting any side effects so that we can understand these new drugs. We have clinical research nurses that work with the patients. We have clinical research coordinators that oversee the activity of the trial. We have data assistants that have to enter all this data so that we can share it with the other 200 institutions. We have processing of samples like tissue from tumors or blood samples that have to be sent out. It is a tremendous amount of work and takes a tremendous amount of resources. We really could not do it without our philanthropic partners, and that means all donations, big and small. I would like to highlight that sometimes we have what's called challenge grants. So we've partnered now for a number of years with Alex's Lemonade Stand Foundation. And for the next 4 years, they are willing to give us $62,500 if we can match that dollar for dollar. So that gives us the possibility of $125,000 to put towards our team to bring these drugs forward. We're so thankful for this type of partnership, and it really takes every dollar to unlock that $62,500. There have been times where, because our resources have been limited by the number of patients that need to be treated, that we've been unable to offer a clinical trial. We continue to grow, and we continue to value all of the resources that you donate to allow us to grow our clinical trial program. I'm going to turn it over to Linda now, who's going to share another video that will talk about some of the exciting research that's happening at the Children's Hospital of Pittsburgh.
Thank you, Jean. I'm very excited to share this video with you that features two of my wonderful colleagues. First, Dr. Ian Pollack. He is the Chief of Pediatric Neurosurgery at Children's Hospital, and he's a pioneer in brain tumor research, particularly in the use of anti-tumor vaccines. You'll also meet Dr. Kelly Bailey, who I'm extraordinarily proud of. Dr. Bailey is a junior faculty who came to us about 4 years ago from University of Michigan. And she studies Ewing sarcoma, which is a type of bone tumor that occurs primarily in adolescents. And Dr. Bailey just received something called a National Cancer Institute K08 Award. This is an outstanding achievement. This is a big grant that's given to extraordinarily promising young researchers who are launching new research programs. I'm excited to introduce you to these two wonderful colleagues and the research that's going on here at Children's Hospital of Pittsburgh.
In the last 5 years, our team has grown substantially. We've gone from really one lab that was focusing on brain tumor research to now having 5 independent investigators here at Children's that are all doing brain tumor related work. The clinical program has also grown substantially, thanks in large part to our ability to get intraoperative MRI, which enables us to safely remove as much of the tumor as we can. We're able to work in the OR and then immediately take the patient or the child to the MRI, which is adjacent to the OR, see if we've gotten all the tumor out, and if not, we can go back in the same operation and do more. We have investigators that are focused on immunotherapy, which is an exciting new area of research in brain tumors. We are working on strategies for counteracting resistance of tumors to various medicines. Also within the last 5 years, we've gotten increasing information about the diversity of tumor subtypes within broad groups of tumors. Through work that we've participated in, it's clear that there now are different prognostic groups, and so kids with these tumors need to be treated differently, and that's something that's really evolved in the last 5 years. The teams here are very collaborative. Our labs are close together, so we have members of the group that have different areas of expertise. All I have to do is walk down the hall or pick up the phone and I can talk to a world expert in something. And having that ability keeps my research at the cutting edge. And in areas where I think I need more input, I'm able to get it from somebody who's right next door in the lab. Ellie had a very special role in our trial because she was the first person on our vaccine trial that had a clear-cut response, but it was very complicated. Initially, after she had finished radiation and begun the vaccine trial, she developed enlargement of her tumor, which in almost any other circumstance would have been due to tumor progression. She was placed on corticosteroids, and miraculously, she had an MRI several weeks after starting the steroids that showed a dramatic shrinkage of her tumor, something that I had never seen before. It's clear that it's not going to be a cure. It's going to need to be a component of therapy, and it's something that we need to build on. I'm not sure we would have had as strong an impetus to keep going had we not seen that dramatic positive result in her case. It sort of gave us an inspiration to keep working on this.
So I study the pediatric bone tumor Ewing sarcoma. So it's a cancer that's most common in adolescents. And my research focuses on figuring out the way that those tumors respond to DNA damage and how the immune system interacts differently with those tumors after DNA damage has occurred. We find exciting pathways in the lab. I'm constantly trying to enroll patients that are willing to donate parts of their tumors so we can look at those pathways in tumors. And then I work a lot with the Children's Oncology group. So nationally, I'm on the bone tumor committee for Ewing sarcoma. And so I'm there giving biology opinions and helping to form next clinical trials. We are one of the top children's hospitals in the country, and our division is one of the top pediatric hematology oncology divisions. And I'm actually the first person in our division to receive a KO8 award. So I feel like we've always been amazing, but in the research realm, this is just an extra little fire that started to burn. So I think we have a lot of great research momentum. Philanthropic funding can really impact the health and the healthcare of children. It starts in the lab, so we use philanthropic funding to get those early, exciting experiments off the ground and launched. Using state-of-the-art techniques is expensive, and so when we have that support, we're able to do those experiments in a more timely manner.
I think philanthropy can have enormous benefits. The field keeps changing. We gain more and more insights into what it is that make these tumors tick. And the more we know about them, the more different options we have to pursue. One of these days we're going to win the battle. We're not there yet.
I love the way that Dr. Pollack closed his remarks with, we haven't won we want to win the battle, but we aren't there yet. And we're on our way, but there's so much left to accomplish, and we're scratching the surface and hearing about this exciting research that Dr. Bailey and Dr. Pollack, you, Linda, and so many others are pursuing in the clinical trials that we're able to engage in to benefit our patients. And as you look forward into the future, what has you excited about what research holds for patients and their trajectory?
Well, I think this moment in the history of cancer research is so incredibly exciting and promising. With all the technology that has come on board in the last decade, we have the capacity to know so much more about the biology of the tumors that we're trying to get rid of. We understand at the level of DNA, at the level of protein, much more about why these cancers occur, and we understand much more about the differences between cancer. And we have the chance to now personalize care based on this biology. We call this concept precision medicine. It means that instead of having a patient come in and have acute lymphoblastic leukemia and giving them treatment based on that name of that that diagnosis. We now know that there's many categories of acute lymphoblastic leukemia, and we customize the treatment based on the biology of that particular individual patient. Dr. Pollack mentioned this in his video as well, saying there's different prognostic groups in pediatric brain tumors. So we're making our treatments so much more sophisticated and customized, and we think that that is going to make it much more effective and also much less toxic. You know, chemotherapy, the word chemotherapy is a drug that's designed to kill a rapidly dividing cell. That's not very specific. And you can imagine how that would cause major side effects. We have rapidly dividing cells in our body, our hair, our gut, and chemotherapy does huge damage to these. We want targeted, precise therapy, giving the right treatment to the right patient at the right time, and research is the only way to get there. I'm super excited about what we're going to see in the future. The other area that Dr. Pollack and Dr. Bailey both mentioned is immunotherapy. In the last 10 or so years, we've realized different ways to harness a patient's own immune system so that they actually mount an immune response to the cancer itself. This is a new way of thinking about treating cancers, and we're super excited about all the possibility.
Oh, those are exciting developments and certainly can shift the trajectory for cancer patients and improve their outcomes, hopefully increasing that cure rate. I'll ask you the same question, Jean. So what has you excited about advances in research in the future?
I think, well, first of all, I agree with everything that Linda said. It is such an exciting time within the field of oncology. I think, you know, when I look, even thinking back through my career, there are children who stand before me today who I know would not have survived when I first started it. And I know there are children that don't have late effects now that would have had 10 years ago. So I think seeing that constant progress and seeing where we're headed is just a drive for the mission to continue to make it better. I also think it's, you know, it's the way we honor the people that went before us, the patients and families, to try to make things better in terms of cure rate and also the reduced toxicity.
Indeed. Well, I can see that our audience is submitting questions, so I'm going to divert our attention here to their questions coming in. Just a reminder again to our audience members to use that chat function. This first question is about treatment and specifically for neuroblastoma. What specific treatments are being offered for maintenance with such an aggressive pediatric cancer? So I'll throw these questions out to the two of you, and you two can decide who's going to answer.
So I'm going to suggest that Jean answers this question. She is our expert in neuroblastoma.
Thank you. You know, neuroblastoma is one of the diseases that I was just speaking about, where there are children that I see today that survive that would not have survived previously because of research. I do think that what we would call minimal residual disease therapies are going to be an important part of the future. So when we've reduced the disease to such a level that we can't see it, to offer a maintenance therapy. You know, one of the things about research is that you can't manipulate too many questions at one time or you won't get an answer. So I think there are some very important things that are happening right now that are improving the cure rate, and we will develop other oral techniques, immunotherapy-related vaccine-related techniques that are going to address that sort of post-therapy maintenance portion of treatment.
Wonderful. Another question for the two of you. As we've heard mention of philanthropy making such a big difference in our cancer program at Children's, and so many donations coming in, big and small, grateful families, grateful both to have their children with them and those that were grateful for the care even if their children are not with them, but wanting to make a difference for kids in the future who are diagnosed with cancer. Can you speak to some of the ways that you've seen philanthropy make a difference and how people are supporting the program? Jean, why don't I start with you?
Sure. I would say first that every donation matters, and we couldn't do any of this without the collective donations that we receive. I think two recent gifts that I'd really like to highlight. One is through the Levesque family. we were able to build what's called an MIBG room. So MIBG is another promising therapy for neuroblastoma, but the I in MIBG is an iodinated compound that is radioactive. So in order to deliver this therapy, we had to build a very special room that is lead-lined throughout and is designed to keep families safe, keep patients safe, keep staff safe, and we could not have done it without the LVEX. This will allow us to contribute nationally and internationally to trials to advance MIBG. When we look at the survivorship phase, we recently received a large gift from the Marchek family, and this is called the Hope for Boo Marchek Family Survivorship Fund in honor of a neuroblastoma survivor. And this really will give a strong foundation that will allow us to build upon not only the clinical care that we provide for patients in front of us, but to grow our research operations, to be able to disseminate information and impact care not only at Children's Hospital Pittsburgh, but for children around the world.
Wow, two amazing kinds of gifts that impacting the care you deliver in different ways. So, Linda, do you have something to add to that?
Absolutely. As I mentioned, our research program literally runs because of philanthropy. We are so grateful for the support, and we couldn't do it without it. We have some endowment gifts, such as the Lamole Fund, that funds a number of the salaries of our very critically important research staff. We benefit hugely from community engagement. We have folks who are running golf outings each year that raise money. We have high schools doing really fun fundraisers, like at my son's high school, where they do this thing you can wear a hat on a day and then you donate, and this is a fundraiser. I do want to mention one of our key events, Unwind. This is an event that happens each year, except for last year because of COVID. Happens at the Narcisi Winery. It's a beautiful event in honor of our patients and is a huge source of support for our research program. And so, like Jean said, we really couldn't run research, which doesn't generate revenue. Insurance companies don't pay for research. So we couldn't do this research without the support of these efforts from so many people.
Well, thank you very much for talking about our program at Children's, sharing the great work that's happening, honoring the patients that are battling cancer, winning their battle, and unfortunately some that are losing their battle, but staying diligent and focused on this important work so that we can make a big difference for kids that are diagnosed with cancer in the future. This is a point when we'll need to close our program given our time, but I have a few highlights to share with you, an invitation specifically to the Walk for Children's event on June 5th. So if you aren't already registered and you're joining us today and would like to support our cancer program at Children's, this would be a great way for you to do that. If you could visit walkforchildrens.com and register to learn more, join us where you walk from where you are. It's a virtual event program and walking wherever it makes sense for you this year. The proceeds from Walk for Children's primarily support our unrestricted needs at Children's, but in particular, you can restrict your donation to support our cancer program, helping to unlock things, support like the Alex's Lemonade grant, for instance. The other invitation is an extension of what Linda had mentioned, Unwind. That's on August 3rd. Again, visit our website, givetochildrens.org, and learn more about Unwind and look for an opportunity to register to join us at Narcisi Winery this year. There's so much left to do, and philanthropy is a big part of making a difference in the lives of so many children we serve. So I hope that you enjoyed our program today. We're inspired by the amazing work that Linda, Jean, and their colleagues are doing at UPMC Children's. And if you aren't already involved or would like to learn more, make a difference, I hope you'll reach out to my colleague, Molly Vogel. Her information is on the screen. She'll be happy to help facilitate whatever your interest is in helping our program. Again, we couldn't do what we do without our generous supporters. Thank you so much for your gifts to UPMC Children's, and thank you for being with us today.